Imagine, a city established in the middle of fertile lands, at the crossroads of trade routes, full of wealth and prosperity. Yet this city would be remembered as one of the peoples whose name was erased by divine punishment in history. Today we are taking you to the lands where the people of Lot, mentioned in the Qur'an and other sacred texts, once lived. This is not just the story of an ancient people. This is the story of how the collapse of morality can drag a society toward destruction. Who was Prophet Lot? Prophet Lot was the nephew of Prophet Ibrahim, so he came from the same prophetic family. He was a messenger who taught the belief in Tawheed, worship of the one and only God. Just as Abraham struggled against idolatry, Lot was sent to confront moral and social corruption. God sent him to the people living in the region known today as the area around Jordan, Palestine, and the Dead Sea. At that time, this region was fertile, lay on major trade routes, had wealth, had developed urban life. But inside this society, which looked strong from the outside, a deep moral decay had begun. How did the society's corruption begin? The Qur'an speaks of the major sins committed by the people of Lot. At the forefront were moral deviations not previously seen at this scale in any society. But the key point here is not just a single sin. The general characteristics of this people were ignoring moral boundaries. The sense of shame had disappeared. Things that were wrong became normalized and even defended. Committing sin openly, they did not hide their wrongdoing. On the contrary, they saw it as a lifestyle. They had no tolerance for being warned. Hostility toward guests, it is narrated that they attacked travelers and harmed strangers who came to their city. So the society had become a threat not only internally, but also to outsiders. Social pressure. When someone among them stood up and said, "What you are doing is wrong," they silenced, excluded, and even threatened that person. This is where Prophet Lot steps in. Prophet Lot approached his people with compassion. He did not look down on them. He did not insult them. He simply told the truth. It is reported that he called out to them, "O my people, fear Allah. I am a trustworthy messenger to you." He reminded them that what they were doing was against human nature, that it would lead society to collapse, that the family structure was being destroyed, that the future of their society was darkening. But how did his people respond? Instead of thinking, questioning, and turning away from error, they turned against their prophet. The people of Lot began to mock him instead of listening. They said, "If you are telling the truth, then bring us the punishment you promise." This statement is very important, because now they were not only committing sin, they were belittling God's punishment and openly challenging it. They went even further. About Lot and the small number of believers with him, they said, "Expel them from your city. They are people who want to stay pure." Isn't that striking? Staying clean, living morally, standing against wrongdoing, these were starting to be seen as crimes. This is one of the greatest signs that a society is in decline, the exclusion of the good and the normalization of evil. Prophet Lot's task was very difficult, because very few believed in him. Even within his own family, there was someone who did not believe, his wife. Social pressure was extremely strong. Still, he did not give up. For years he spoke, warned, advised, and remained patient. But his people only went further astray with each passing day. They were no longer just committing sin, they were defending it, spreading it, and showing hostility toward those who opposed it. And at this point, divine justice would come into effect. But first, a very important event would take place. The guests who came to Prophet Lot's house were not actually human. They were angels assigned by God. According to the majority of Islamic scholars, the leader of these angels was Gabriel. Along with him were other angels who would carry out the punishment. However, as part of their mission, they appeared in the form of very handsome young men. This event did not begin directly at Lot's house. The same angels first went to Prophet Abraham's house. As described in the Qur'an, Abraham thought they were unfamiliar guests and brought food before them. But when he noticed they did not reach for the food, he felt fear. The angels then revealed who they were and told him not to be afraid. They had not come only with a mission of punishment. First, they brought good news. They gave Abraham and his wife Sarah the news that, despite their old age, they would have a child. This child would be Isaac. This glad tidings is clearly mentioned in the Qur'an, and Abraham's wife smiles in surprise at the news. The angels tell them that this is not difficult for God. But there was a second, heavier purpose for their visit. The angels said that the people of Lot had reached the final point, and that the decree of destruction had been issued against them. When Abraham received this news, he was deeply saddened, because Lot was his relative, and he felt compassion for the people living there. The Qur'an describes Abraham as gentle, tender-hearted, and devoted to God. So he spoke almost pleadingly on behalf of the people. But the angels informed him that the divine decree had been finalized, and there was no turning back. After this, the angels left Abraham and headed toward the city where Lot lived. They were still in human form. When they arrived, Lot did not recognize them. He thought they were young travelers from outside. But knowing his people's immorality, he became very anxious. He feared harm would come to them and quickly took them into his home. Later, when the townspeople heard that these young strangers had arrived, they gathered in front of Lot's house. At that time, the angels were still in human form. As Prophet Lot pleaded desperately with his people, the guests finally revealed their true identity. They were not ordinary humans, but messengers of God. Their mission was to save Lot and the believers, and then carry out the divine punishment decreed for that rebellious people. The Qur'an describes this moment in a striking way. The people of Lot rush toward his house like a crowd that has lost control. In Surah Al-Hijr, verses 67 to 68, it says, "The people of the city came rejoicing, with evil intent. Lot said, 'These are my guests, so do not disgrace me.'" Notice this. They come rejoicing. Evil is no longer ordinary in their eyes. It has turned into an exciting form of entertainment. Prophet Lot stands at the door. A prophet, alone, facing a depraved crowd, pleading with them, "Fear Allah, do not shame me concerning my guests." This sentence is actually the final call of conscience for a society. While the crowd is pressing at the door, the guests inside, the angels, finally reveal the truth. They say, "O Lot, we are messengers of your Lord. They will never reach you." Imagine that moment. Fear is replaced by divine reassurance. The angels command Lot, "Leave during the night, take your family with you. Do not look back except your wife." Because according to the Qur'an, Lot's wife was inwardly aligned with those people, maybe not in belief, but morally she sided with them. In Surah At-Tahrim, verse 10, it says, "Allah presents the example of the wife of Noah and the wife of Lot for those who disbelieve. They were married to two of our righteous servants, but betrayed them." This betrayal refers to not supporting their husbands in faith and moral stance. This shows us, being close to a prophet is not, by itself, a guarantee of salvation. The people of Lot were no longer just doing wrong. They had turned wrongdoing into an ideology. One of the statements they made to Lot, mentioned in the Qur'an, is, "You know very well we have no interest in your daughters, in the lawful way." In other words, they were saying, "We do not want the right path." This is the most dangerous point a society can reach, when sin is no longer even seen as sin. The Prophet Muhammad said in a hadith, "A group from my nation will not meet the hour until they consider adultery, silk, alcohol, and musical instruments to be lawful." The point emphasized here is this: it is not just committing sin, but normalizing and legitimizing it that leads societies to collapse. Prophet Lot set out at night with the small number of believers. This scene is very symbolic. Behind them, a city awaiting punishment. Ahead of them, an unknown future, but faith in the heart. The angel's warning was clear. None of you should look back. because looking back shows that the heart is still attached. But Lot's wife cannot resist. She turns back and is destroyed along with the others. This teaches us, physical distance is not enough. The heart must also detach. Morning comes. The Qur'an describes the destruction of the people of Lot like this. The city was turned upside down. Stones rained down upon them. The stones were marked Surah Hud, verse 82. When our command came, we turned it upside down and rained upon them stones of baked clay. This was not an ordinary natural disaster. This was the manifestation of divine justice. The Qur'an also says, "In that are signs for those who take heed." Al-Hijr 75. So this story is not told only to describe the past, but to warn the future. The Prophet Muhammad strongly forbade the obscene acts of the people of Lot and warned his community about them. In one hadith he said, "If you find anyone doing the action of the people of Lot, kill the one who does it and the one to whom it is done." This hadith shows how severely Islam views this behavior as a deviation. However, in Islamic law, punishments are not carried out by individuals, but within the authority of the state and the courts. So the issue is not chaos, but the protection of social order and morality. At the same time, the Prophet also taught this principle. Make things easy, do not make them difficult. Give glad tidings and do not drive people away. So there is warning, but the language of invitation is always with wisdom and mercy. That is exactly what Prophet Lot did. What remained after the destruction? Lesson, silence, and a message. It is widely accepted that the place where the people of Lot lived is today, around the Dead Sea. This lake lies far below sea level and is one of the saltiest bodies of water in the world. Interestingly, many researchers say this region may have experienced a great catastrophe in the past. In ancient sources, the following cities are said to have existed there: Sodom Gomorrah, Admah Zeboim Bela, Zoar. Prophet Lot was sent especially to the people of Sodom. One of the most well-known traditions about the region is the pillar of salt, said to be Lot's wife. This natural rock formation is found near Mount Sodom and is popularly and traditionally referred to as Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt. This has been associated with the Quranic story in which his wife was destroyed along with the people. The cities were destroyed. Vineyards, gardens, palaces, streets. In places that were once crowded, there was now only the silence of death. But the Qur'an tells us, this event was not just a disaster that happened and ended in that time. It is a warning left for all people until the day of judgment. The Qur'an states that the places where the people of Lot lived were left as signs. In Surah As-Safat, verses 137 to 138, it says, "And you pass by their ruins in the morning and at night. Will you not use reason?" So that region remained for a long time as a place where people could see and take lessons. What does the salvation of Prophet Lot teach? The destruction came, but not everyone perished. Prophet Lot was saved. The small number of believers were saved. This shows us the majority does not determine the truth. Truth may sometimes be in the minority. Remaining upright in difficult times is valuable. Going against society is hard but precious. The Qur'an frequently says, most people do not believe. Most people are not grateful. So what matters is not numbers but direction. Why was Lot's wife not saved? This is one of the most striking parts of the story. The wife of a prophet, yet among those destroyed, because her heart was not with the believers, but with that corrupt society. This gives us a clear message. Family ties do not save. Faith and moral stance save. The Prophet Muhammad's uncle Abu Lahab also did not believe and was not saved. Surah Al-Masad was revealed about him. So, in the sight of God, the measure of value is not lineage, status, closeness, but faith, morality, and submission. Why is this story repeated so often in the Qur'an? The story of the people of Lot appears in many places in the Qur'an. Al-A'raf, Hud al-Hijr al-Shu'ara, An-Naml al-Ankabut, Al-Qamar as-Safat. Why so much repetition? Because this story simultaneously teaches the importance of moral boundaries, the danger of social corruption, the consequences of opposing prophets, the salvation of patient believers. The stories in the Qur'an are not fairy tales. They are living lessons explaining social psychology and divine laws. While listening to this story, the real question should be, not what did they do, but what are we doing in a society where modesty is weakening, sin is becoming public, wrong is called freedom, and truth is suppressed. Those who defend goodness are excluded. There, the story of the people of Lot should be read again. The stories in the Qur'an are not told to narrate history, but so that we do not fall into the same mistakes.